ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Simply Sarah Show. My name is Sarah Tuck, and I will be your host for today. But before we get started, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube. Welcome back to the Simply Sarah Show. And today our guest will be talking to us out of St. Augustine, Florida. Her name is Debra Weller, and she is going to be talking to us about storytelling. So at this time, I'm going to open the floor and let us tell us something about herself and about her storytelling.
Thank you, Sarah. It's delightful to be with you today and to be reaching out to your audience. Yes, I am a professional storyteller. I've been performing professionally for 41 years, but my storytelling experiences go way back to my childhood. First of all, I had great examples from my grandfather and my grandmothers and aunts and uncles and my own father, who used storytelling to both entertain and tantalize the children. But what I loved most was being that child who was sent to my room, because when I was sent to my room, I learned how to tell stories. I would take my dolls and my stuffed animals and create stories, draw pictures, take my Barbie dolls, and we'd have melodramas. It was the way that I started. By the time I reached more into the later part of my childhood years, the neighbors and I would gather every summer and create a fairy tale. We would create the fairy tale and act it out in one of the garages. We'd sell popcorn and lemonade and send out invitations to the neighborhood. As I progressed through the years, I discovered storytelling was a way to teach, as I'm also a teacher, and I learned that storytelling was magic in the classroom. So I began this quest of using storytelling as a story teacher, both in the classroom and outside of the classroom. I teach workshops to help people in several ways. In my career, I started in New Jersey and in the recreation departments, the libraries, the Philadelphia Folk Festival, with my partner, Lynn. She and I were the Annie Lynn storytellers. And with our young children in tow, we would perform at festivals and events throughout New Jersey, Delaware, and Philadelphia. Then I moved to California, and I had to start my storytelling all over again. So I founded the South Coast Storytellers Guild, a nonprofit in Orange County, California. And that began the gathering of storytellers from Southern California. From there, I taught in kindergarten for all these years at Bathgate Elementary, using storytelling as the heart of my curriculum, and then teaching workshops for adults and teachers in doing training, and especially for people to come to discover their personal storytelling and their legacy storytelling. And today we're going to be talking about how you can bring your memories or the memories of loved ones alive through storytelling. It's been the best journey of my life to be a storyteller and to teach people how to become better storytellers, to preserve that legacy of story in their families and to use it in their professions.
That's great. One of the questions that I have for you is, I noticed when you said that, it helps in your memory. In my medical field that I used to be in before I retired, I dealt with early dementia and Alzheimer's patients. So when you are reading stories to them, it kind of brings back a little memory when you're telling them.
That is so true. And with our patients who are losing memory, and with our loving family members who are starting to lose their memory, the nice way that we can connect with them is through story, especially if you use some of the mementos or objects from their life. And when you bring those familiar things to them or photographs, they will start to tell you about that story. It will start to waken those centers of the brain for that memory when they have that prompt to help them, like giving them a seashell and let them touch and feel and smell that seashell, and then asking them, did you ever go to the beach? What do you remember about going to the beach? The important thing is letting them tell their story. But if you want to preserve that legacy, record, of course, with permission from the caregivers, record that story. And that way it becomes their story. You can also use an app on StoryCorps. On StoryCorps, they have an app which will allow you to record these stories and preserve them for your posterity. So again, find an object that had meaning to them. For some women, it might be that perfume bottle, a piece of jewelry, the pictures, baby shoes, a doll. For men, it might be maybe a basketball, if they participated in sports long ago, pictures of cars that they might have driven. This will help to bring back the memory. And sensory details are so important because even by smelling a certain flower, that can evoke a memory of maybe the flowers they had in their garden. So very important to spend time with the elders in our family and try to get those memories written and preserved before they can no longer speak or share.
So wouldn't you say that it's very important to start storytelling when you're young with, your children, and reading nights, like a lot of people read stories at night to their children, or just reading stories, period, or even just telling them about what went on in the family so that they can hold on to that memory through the years, to where if it gets to something like, they get early dementia in their older age, or maybe if you have a film or something, it'll help them click back to that memory.
Mm-hmm. Oh, storytelling in the family is where it should start. Do you know that by either reading or telling stories, if we read to children before the age of 5,
Okay.
3 times a day, they will come to school with a vocabulary of 44,000 words. The children who are not read to, they will not have that equal standing. If you read to your child, and this means mama, daddy, grandmas, grandpas, aunties, uncles, whoever is helping with the upbringing of that child, sit those children right next to you on the sofa or have them in your lap. You can even start with infants as young as 6 months old, flipping through baby books and just making up story as you go. For very young children and in families, picture books are the essential way. You can be reading that story. And Sarah, did you ever have this happen with your children? That one story that they wanted to hear over and over again?
Well, I had just a few things when I was sharing about my daughter's father, because he passed away at an early age. So, but when I had time, because I was working a lot and I didn't get to really spend a lot of time like I would have loved to have spent with her. But yes, I do remember some of that. Yes.
My children would find certain books. So story reading is essential, but the fun comes when the moms and dads will close the book and then invite each child to tell a part of the story that they remember. Now, Bible stories are great if that's part of your family experience. Think of all those parables and stories that can be told and reenacted in your family. I suggest you have a family story night where you reenact stories, whether it's the Three Little Pigs, Billy Goat's Gruff, fables are wonderful, or Bible stories. Everybody in the family gets a turn to be the storyteller. You have to start simply in your family by creating time for story. Dinner time is a wonderful time to share what happened during the day, but also you could have topics like where would be our favorite family vacation place? Go around the table and let each person have a chance to share. Another fun game is to find objects. Mom and dad, grandmas and grandpas could put 3 objects into a bag, and then they could pull out those objects. And so let's say it's a paintbrush, it's lip gloss, and some tape. Well, how could we make a story with these 3 objects? The challenge is, what are we going to do? Someone in the family needs to be the story starter. So for instance, I could say, one morning, I couldn't find my lip gloss. I was looking everywhere for it. And at that very moment, tape just rolled down the floor. Why would my tape remind me of my lip gloss? Then Paintbrush started talking. Hey, why don't you go check in the garage? I think the lip gloss might have fallen on the ground when you got out of the car. I went outside and I discovered there it was. And that piece of tape reminded me that I needed to tape my lip gloss to a safe place so it wouldn't roll away again. Now, these are improvisational stories, but it wouldn't be that one person would necessarily tell the story. The whole family could take turns creating them. I always did the stinky sock story and hold up a stinky old sock, pass it around the circle, and by the end, we were all laughing and giggling.
That sounds fun too.
Stories should be fun, Sarah. It should be common, from the moment that Grandpa just spins a yarn to Auntie telling stories of her day or what happened. The best stories are getting your family members, your older family members, to say, what did you do when you were growing up?
Well, we do that a lot when we have family gatherings. We'll get to talking about what some of us has done in the past when we were coming up, and we'll get to laughing, and then some of the young ones said, you did that, well, no wonder you like this or whatever. So when you can, like you said, sit around and with the family and go around and say something about each other, it just lets them know that also that we all wasn't little angels. We might have did some little things that, mom and dad maybe didn't even know about. But after we got to talking, they found out then.
Don't you think it humanizes for our younger generations? It humanizes that, number one, you weren't perfect. Number two, you might have gotten into some mischief. You might have even gone behind your mama and daddy's back. And sometimes there were consequences for your behavior. But I think it helps them see you as, they were little kids too.
Right.
by retelling these stories, what are we doing? We are helping the younger generation to be connected. And I think in this past year, with all of our isolation, whether we were on virtual communication with our family on Zoom or Facebook or FaceTime, whatever, the kids were missing out with that community of the family. And we need to restore that with them now, because that helps them have that strong sense of belonging when we share the heritage stories. I think what happens that breaks my heart the most is when we don't make time for it. And before you know it, somebody in our family passes and we don't have those stories.
That's so true. So
Mhm.
true. Well, we're going to take a quick break right here. And then when we come back, we'll let you finish telling us some more about storytelling. We'll be right back.
We serve an awesome God. We serve a mighty God. We serve a God who's able. Listen. I'm convinced. I'm convinced. I can make it through the storm. It's God's intent. He said it would work out for my good. That is what he meant. I'm convinced that it's God's intent. I'm convinced, yeah, that it's God's intent. Y'all help me sing this.
I'm convinced.
I'm convinced, yeah.
I'm convinced
That I can make it through the storm.
I can make it through the storms. It's God's intent.
He said it would work out.
He said it would work out for my good, and that's what he meant.
That is what my God meant, yeah.
I'm convinced that it's God's intent.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Simply Sarah Show. And today, like I had said earlier, that we have Debra Weller with us, and she is talking to us about storytelling. And she also has some slideshows that she's going to be showing us as well. So at this time, we're going to let her continue.
I have a class that I teach on my website about personal storytelling. And I'm just going to share a few of those slides with some highlights of how you can go about developing those stories with your family. So just give me a second while I pull up those slides. Okay, so I want to share with you about preserving your family stories. Because when we preserve our family stories, it is a type of generational learning. We can do it several ways: by recording those stories in journals, actually recording them with our phones, making a video of grandma, auntie, mom, or dad sharing. I love stories about love. These are my in-laws. And isn't it great to find out, how did you meet your loving husband or wife? What was it like to go on a date? These kinds of things will help the young children in the family see the history of the marriages that happened, and that cements their bond with the family. I record some of my stories on Family Search, and Ancestry.com also gives you that option of recording your stories, and StoryCorps. Now, how do we get the memory to make that story? First of all, we need to have an anecdote or a place to start. Let's say it was a birthday celebration. Maybe it was your 13th birthday. So Sarah, just kind of think about this when I ask these questions. See what kind of prompts these questions might evoke in you. You want to think of who is the main character. Are you telling it about yourself, or are you relating a situation about other people? What was the event? In this case, I'll say it was my 13th birthday party. I had never had a 13th birthday party or any birthday parties for the longest time because my birthday's in February during flu season. And a lot of my birthday parties were canceled because I was sick with the flu. But on my 13th birthday party, I got to have it. And I lived in New Orleans, and it was around Mardi Gras time. So we decorated that house looking like Mardi Gras. And everybody who came to my birthday party got Mardi Gras beads. We had Mardi Gras cupcakes. And you know, being 13, we even played Spin the Bottle for the first time. So here I gave you a little example of how you create that memory step by step. What was the event? Where were you? What did it look like? What did it smell like? What were the colors? Were you happy about the birthday? Or did something sad happen? Like one time I was at a friend's birthday party and I was playing with the candles and set the tablecloth and the cake on fire. I was asked to leave, of course. So you want to evoke that memory. How will it be? You want to get a bare bones of your story. Your story needs a strong beginning statement. And when we're just telling personal stories on the porch, we think, oh, let me tell you about what happened yesterday. Well, no, how are you going to capture the family who might be listening? Well, let me tell you what happened on my 13th birthday is different than, well, I want to tell you about my 13th birthday. Put a little more expression in it. Or, did you ever know I played Spin the Bottle on my 13th birthday? A question to evoke everybody's ears to perk up. And of course, we want to add those sensory details in all the characters. Was there a problem? Like when I set the cake on fire and the tablecloth on fire at my friend's birthday? And then we want to bring a satisfying conclusion to it and say, well, what is that satisfying conclusion that I have? And my satisfying conclusion was, I loved having all my friends over on my 13th birthday. For the first time in 5 years, I finally got to celebrate a birthday. That would be my satisfying conclusion. This gets back to the point of objects can evoke a story. You might want to use an object, like my grandma had a button box. She was a seamstress. I loved to sit on the floor and play with her sewing machine and play with the buttons and use her big magnet to pick up all the pins. In this picture, you'll see the stinky sock, or there's a thermometer to remind someone at a time when they were ill. Going to the dentist for the first time, a Band-Aid for a boo-boo, and a shell, like I said before, and then my daughter's first attempt of making a turtle out of clay, and then a beautiful little doll that my grandmother gave to me. Each of these items could provoke a story.
Great, great. Well, that was interesting. It's good to be able to see things to where it can trigger your mind to where you can bring back memories. Even in children, as they're growing up. And then you just let them see some and they like, oh, or maybe they hadn't, they lost a doll or something, it got or something got misplaced. And then if you bring it back to them, it's funny at how they like, oh, they remember, it just comes back real quick. So it's good. That's really good.
It is really good. And I think the important thing is you could even take it a little further in your family and write little stories down, record them, but also let the kids make picture books about it. What's happening right now is so many parents are carrying around all the pictures of their kids on a phone. They're not making scrapbooks anymore for those children.
Mm-hmm.
And I always like to go through my scrapbooks because when I go through, it brings back the stories. So I highly recommend maybe grandmas and grandpas or aunties and uncles have some scrapbooking time with the children in the family if mom and dad are too busy, and start putting together little books about them so that someday when they're parents, they'll have something other than just what's on a phone or whatever technology will be in the future. They'll have this memory as something concrete that they can pull out and share with their own children and the next generations of time.
And it's always good to have like slideshows when you're having family gatherings, and when everyone's gathered around, they can see and look back, on the family members maybe that's not there, or maybe something that went on when you keep those pictures. So it's good to also take them out of the phone, because with technology, something could happen to these phones, or either I've heard of people saying, well, my pictures got lost. So, or they'll switch over to new phones and somehow the pictures got lost. And I've heard a lot of people get upset. I'll be in the shop with them, and they like, no, I've had those pictures for so-and-so, and see, they didn't take and back them up anywhere. And now, of course, I'm learning things as time goes along that you can back them up, in emails and different things, and have them later if something happens.
Important, Sarah. I'm glad you brought that up, of preserving our data on electronic data. And that's why some of the genealogy sites allow you to upload and then it becomes permanent. And there are some apps that you can search for about family history apps, recording family history, so that it becomes preserved in a cloud-like experience, so it can be used in that way. But there's nothing wrong with actually creating that document. And there's so many fun ways to do it, because you could use PowerPoint and just make a PowerPoint slideshow and print it out. And now you have a book. There's also a lot of photo apps, Shutterfly, and a variety of places that you can go on to make those books. And even though they take up space, you don't have to make them for every little thing, but creating them for significant family moments are important to preserve it. You never know when that little child of the future, the grandchild, the great-grandchild, will take out that actual book and walk through it and realize, wow, my grandma was a really neat lady. Look at everything she did. And we also have to be willing to tell the stories of the generations before us, because if those people have already passed, we want to preserve that family history as much as we can. And I've been doing that, gathering the old family photographs. Some of that information was lost, but I was grateful. My grandmother was pretty good about writing things down. Most people, you get a box of photographs with no dates, no annotations on them, and you've got to, oh, maybe this is Uncle Fred. Oh, I don't know. Maybe this is Aunt Lena. And you just have to put it together.
That's good. And, like you said, in bringing back the memory for a lot of people, you can also, like for Christmas gifts or birthday gifts or whatever, fix that little book, and then you can give it as a gift. Because that way they'll have their family members in there. So it's not only just a gift, it's something like they can treasure forever.
It becomes a treasure. My children did not have their grandparents living nearby. So what I did is I put up photographs of grandmas and grandpas and aunties and uncles in their bedroom. And every night before they went to bed, it was kind of like the Waltons. We would say good night to grandma, good night to grandpa. Then I made them little books with those photos in there, and I put them in like a plastic sheeting so that the babies could look through them, and we talk about who those people were.
Mhm.
And it helped when they saw those people again to make that connection with them. My grandchildren live in Scotland, and of course I haven't been able to visit them now for 18 months because of COVID. So I make little videos, at least once a week, short little videos, just telling them about my day or telling them stories. And of course I have my stories up on YouTube, so they call me YouTube Grammy.
Sweet.
That's another way. You can have a family YouTube site. You can make it private, and then the family members can upload their own little videos on there
Okay.
and entertain one another. So that's another fun option, is have your own YouTube family site.
Okay. Well, you learned me something there. Oh, that's good. That's really good.
Mhm.
Well, is there anything else that you would like to share with us? Or
I guess my parting thoughts would be this: don't let the time pass and keep saying, oh, I'll do that someday. Oh, I'll do that someday. No, make an appointment with that grandma. Make an appointment with that grandpa or auntie, your mom or your dad, because sometimes we forget about them. We think about the older gen, but we forget about the young people. My mama died when I was 18.
oh,
And I was a high school senior. She was 40 years old.
mm,
So what I had to do in my lifetime was I had to interview her maid of honor, her sisters, to find out who my mama was. And I wrote it all down, and I made these family books for each of my children and my great nieces and nephews. So they would have the documentation of these family photos and history about the other family members as best I could remember, and from the interviews. Do it when they're alive, because that story is the power and connection of your family history. No one else has that family history. Someone needs to be the family historian, but it's a great activity to involve all the generations. When you gather, say, hey, what kind of stories are we going to tell today? And making sure somebody is taking time to record those stories too, so they don't just get lost in the conversation.
that's so true. Being that Mother's Day just passed, we had a wonderful Mother's Day because me and my sisters' daughters got together and they took us to Gatlinburg. So having the pictures, and they also filmed, I
Oh,
told them that would make a good story.
yes,
And so I said, if nothing else, I could fix a video to give to everybody for Christmas or something. But it's just so many ways that you can cherish that memory,
yes,
you
we are.
know.
But I would highly recommend you do that, because you don't want that moment to pass, and you want to be cherished. I think, for one thing, because of all of our isolation that we've had to go through in separation from our
Mhm.
family, it has turned my heart to realize time can be short. And
So
we
true.
really want to not let those moments just pass away without remembering, especially those significant events. They need to be done, and having a little online journal of some kind is important, or a video journal. That's why you could have your own little personal
Mhm.
YouTube site, or any other way that you can find through technology to share videos. This is the beautiful part of having the technology, but we also want to make sure we have hard copies of things so that it's a back.
Yeah. Well, that's great information. And I would just like to thank you for coming on the show today, Miss Weller. And I'm pretty sure that each and every one has took in a lot of information today. And we will be able to share this, and especially with now getting into close to the end of the year with the virus going on and trying to recover, and things are beginning to open back up. We have a lot of storytelling that we could do and share, and pictures, and some may not be so great because we might have lost family members, but then we have some where we can thank God that we made it out, and see, looking back, letting our children look back, and people look back on the history of who all came through it and what we went through then. That is something that will linger for a lifetime, you know.
That's so important that you brought that up, because this is a collective experience we are all having across the entire world. And everybody has been affected. And don't forget those little ones. My little grandson has suffered some anxiety because of all of this. And we have to reach out to them and let them tell their fears and their stories and find ways to help soothe them. And when they're surrounded by the love of their family, that can help them come through. It's been scary for everyone, from the smallest little children to the oldest people in our family. And the pain and the suffering that has occurred when we've lost family members. Yes, it's part of the grief process too, that we share stories. Sarah, that's such an important point that you made. I hope today that people will find some of this information kind of a call to action. And if you need any help, I'm Debra Weller, and I have my website that we can put on maybe in the notes of the video, and you can contact me also. I'm on @DebStoryteller on Instagram, and I would be delighted to help you on this journey to get you started in recording your family legacy stories.
Thank you very much, and we will do that. And we once again like to thank everyone for watching us today. And so until we meet again, sincerely, Sarah Tuck.
Oh, Sarah, you're so wonderful. You're great with your interviewing. I felt so comfortable with you.
Somebody needs to know that in the midst of your adversities, in the midst of your circumstances, that God is there in the midst. He'll never leave you or forsake you. I see my brothers hurting, I see my sisters crying. Things ain't working out, but Lord knows I'm trying. So many disappointments, so many hearts are broken. Lord, I need some answers, I need some doors to open. See, my money's low and my bills are high. I've been going through, sometimes I just wanna cry. Nobody's reaching out, nobody's hearing me. It seems like nobody cares about what is dear to me. Oh, tell somebody you love you, grab somebody and hug her. Tell somebody you care, tell somebody, let them know you're there. Oh, God knows your struggle, God knows He's there in your trouble. He'll never leave or forsake you. You serve a God who loves you. Tell somebody you love them, grab somebody and hug them. Tell somebody you care, let them know you're there. God knows your struggle, He's there in your trouble. He'll never leave or forsake you. You serve a God who loves you. I'm trying to keep a smile in the midst of trouble. Why is life so tough, man? Why do I have to struggle? If you're a Christian, tell me, are you listening? What are you doing to show it? Hey, does anyone know it? Will you help me out? Will you lend a hand? Will you hear me out? Or can you just understand? You see, I'm tired of fighting like my mind mind is rattled, Lord, I give it to you, because this ain't my battle. Tell somebody you love them. Grab somebody and hug them. Tell somebody you care. Let them know you're there. God knows your struggle. He's there in your trouble. He'll never leave or forsake you. And serve a God who loves you. Tell somebody you love them. Grab somebody and hug them. Tell somebody you care. Let them know you're there. God knows your struggle. He's there in your trouble. He'll never leave or forsake you. And serve a God who loves you. I feel like I'm out here lost. Can only imagine what you were feeling on the cross. Can only imagine all the pain that you felt when you were giving us love and we were giving you death. And I can see the teardrops falling like raindrops, and they can't stop for this ill spot. Heaven is the main spot. You show me love, and that's why I trust ya. You paved the way, and I just wanna touch ya. I feel like I'm falling too fast. I can't see the light. How long will it last? I'm about to lose my mind when these thoughts go away. The devil sneaks in, but I gotta still pray anyway. Lord, I'm depending on you. It's okay. I know you're gonna help me make it through in this day. And when I don't know what to do, I fall to my knees and pray.